Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.thebenjamindixonshow.com to register for our blog and join the Progressive Army.
If the very worst that we have done, you, me, every individual, if the very worst of us was ever exposed, chances are we would all be canceled. Now, notwithstanding the fact that this is all varying degrees, right? The things that I've done may not amount to the things that you've done. The things that you've done may not amount to the things that other people have done. But in the context of our personal lives and the people that matter most around us, if the very worst of us was ever exposed, we would all be canceled. What you've done, what you're hiding, the secret that you're keeping may not amount to more than a blip on the radar of national discourse. Matter of fact, it may not amount to a blip in your community. What you've done that you've been hiding may be something that will only get you canceled by one individual, but it's so severe that you've been hiding it and you don't want to share it because you don't want to be canceled by that one individual. While the rest of us, some of the very worst of my moments are enough to get me canceled. Maybe not on a national level, but still, all of us are problematic in our own ways to somebody, to some community, to some individual. And that's why every single one of us needs what amounts to grace, mercy, forgiveness, all of those things. However, there's a big but here. The big but is that we have no requirement to offer mercy to people who offer us no mercy. We have no requirement to extend kindness to people who would use that kindness to harm us. We have zero responsibility as human beings to put ourselves in a position where we are always extending mercy and grace, capitulating, being kind to, taking into consideration, giving the benefit of the doubt, providing context for people who offer none of those things in return to us, and in fact, use our willingness to cooperate, who will use our willingness to be kind, who will use our willingness to be forgiving as a tool to harm us. And that is the problem with this entire conversation around the nation. It is fomented into the discourse, the national discourse. President Trump is tweeting about cancel culture. Everyone is talking about cancel culture in the commentariat, right? I want to be sure everything that we discuss, even on this show, besides the fact that I discuss people who are hurting, I discuss people who are unemployed, and I try my best to put everything that we talk about in context of the people who are hurting. The fact of the matter is that this show, along with every other podcast, every other article, every other YouTube channel, all this commentary, this entire commentary class is so separate from what's really happening in the world. So when I say the national discourse, I don't mean what's happening in the real world. What's happening in the real world are 40 some odd million people are unemployed trying to figure out what they're going to do when their unemployment benefits run out. What's happening in the real world is 5.4 million people who just lost their health care insurance. What's happening in the real world is 150,000 people are being mourned by their friends and loved ones because this country did nothing to halt the spread of COVID-19. That's what's happening in the real world. The real world does not give a damn about cancel culture or the anti-cancel culture movement that is now plaguing and gripping the conversations of people who otherwise should be using their platforms to provide information, to provide rhetorical ammunition, and to provide revolutionary guidance to everything that's happening in the real world right now. And that's really the only thing that bothers me, that makes this worthwhile talking about on my show. The disappointing thing about this moment is that in a moment in American history where the ground is the ripest it will ever be for revolution, the uprisings around the country, all of the things that are going on, all of the conditions that are necessary to expose the fact that the ruling elite in this country does not give a damn about us, and the commentariat, the commentator class, the people with the blogs, the people with the YouTube channels, the people with the podcast, the people with the reach, the email list, the newsletters, the people who have the ability to access and reach the masses have focused their attention on the problems with cancel culture. That's the disappointment about this moment. This moment has been lost. I say that in hopes of maybe it's not lost, but my gut is telling me that this moment is lost. And the moment is lost because not only did COVID-19 and all of the conditions expose the ruling elite, I believe that this moment has exposed the so-called revolutionaries, quite honestly, the so-called radicals, the people who always talk about socialism, the people who always talk about the neoliberals, the people who always talk about neoliberal this, neoliberal that, neoliberal did this, and neoliberals are sucking. Everybody who talks like that saw fit to make this moment either about cancel culture or to just outright abandon this moment and say that the police are working class blokes too. The police, the same police that are disappearing people, the same police state that is disappearing people in Portland. I'm disappointed because every time I look up, I'm reading an article about cancel culture. I'm hearing a podcast about cancel culture, about why cancel culture is so problematic and why we have to focus on that and why that's the preeminent thing of the day, and why the left will never make progress so long as we're fighting, as long as people are engaging in cancel culture. Right? Every time I look up, there's a YouTube video, a podcast. And then you combine that, right? That itself is the fact that people who have these platforms. See, here's the thing. I appreciate my platform, but my platform is small, right? I have my faithful listeners. I have some pretty good reach on Twitter, yes. But in terms of podcasting and article writing and all that kind of stuff, YouTube, I have a very small audience. And so no matter how much I spend my time trying to push, this is a revolutionary moment. Let's seize upon this moment. Let's educate the people out in Portland. Let's not allow the people in Portland to be co-opted by neoliberals because we did not engage with them, because we dismissed them because they were neoliberals. No matter how much I try to do that, unless we have a unified front, all hands on deck, communicating that same message, it will not actually change this moment. And I'm afraid of the totality of what I'm seeing in this moment suggests that at the most fertile moment, the ground is ripe. The ground is ready for a revolution, even if it's only an uprising even if it's only a revolution to overthrow this regime. I think perhaps that's the difference. Perhaps there's some people who theoretically don't see any value in overthrowing the current neoliberal, neoconservative regime because it's not a full-blown overthrow of the United States of America. I can't help you with that. If that's what you're waiting for, then you too have contributed to us missing the moment. This is the moment. And I'm afraid that we are not. I think the reality is that we are not going to get a moment that is more conducive to changing this country than right now. Because when will conditions ever be? Let me rephrase that. If you're waiting for conditions to be worse than they are now for your glorious revolution, or if you're waiting for a particular style of revolution that fits neatly into what you believe, into your theoretical perspective, one that perhaps is not as dependent on race-based issues, one that doesn't alienate police officers, is that what you're waiting for? Is that what these people are waiting for? Are they waiting for a revolution that can, in earnest, be led by the commentariat? Are you honestly waiting? Are you seriously thinking that because your particular brand of politics that you espouse on your podcast is not what's represented in the streets right now, that we have to wait until the world gets bad enough so that you can lead the glorious revolution. It's the combination, folks. I'm struggling with the combination of folks who are dismissing those protesters in Portland and across this country who are still protesting to this day, till this day. I had to get that meme in there. But till this day, folks are still protesting. And they are not being supported by the people who run their mouths all the damn day long about revolution. Because it's not pure enough. And so it's the combination this morning that is irritating me to the nth degree. The combination of people who decided to use their platform in this moment, in this revolutionary moment, they decided to use their platforms to decry cancel culture. And those people who looked at this moment and said, yeah, I just don't particularly like the politics of the people who are in the streets because they are opposing Trump more than they are opposing capitalism. When the reality of the people in the streets is that they're fighting on behalf of Black lives. And if you ever really dug into the story, they would understand that opposing Black lives not only means opposing Donald Trump, not only means opposing this police state, it also means opposing capitalism, and it also means opposing imperialism. But the people who have the experience, the knowledge, the theoretical perspective, and the ability to literally draw those dots, not only in terms of theory, but also in terms of persuasion, the people who have the skill sets to help those protesters go from A to Z, from fighting for Black Lives Matter to fighting against American imperialism, those people are fighting cancel culture right now. Those people are fighting cancel culture right now. The totality of a movement, of an uprising, is a combination of people playing their role. Everybody has a different role. Everyone has a role to play, and everyone has a different role. Not everyone is going to be on the front line protesting. Not everyone is going to be putting their bodies on the line. Some people are the organizers. Oftentimes, the organizers may not themselves be literally on the front line because of whatever the case may be. They may not be physically suited to be on the front line. But they are a critical component in any uprising. Not everyone is an organizer. Not everyone is on the front line. Some of us are the commentariat. Some of us provide information. Some of us disseminate information. Some of us provide the justification for the moment. Some of us provide justification for the moment in the halls of our debates. And if it's not as glamorous as it once was, where the halls of our debate were literally the halls of the temples, the halls of our debate right now is social media and media in general. And that role is critical. No more critical than anything else. All of the roles are critical. You can't have an uprising without the people playing the role of justifying the reason and the legitimacy and the validity of that moment. And also providing a constant education, constant refining of the arguments, constant refining of the chants, constant refining of all the things that the protesters need to continue their fight, but also understand their fight even more nuanced than the first time they went out there. But how can they do that if the people who have the knowledge, who have the platforms, who have the reach, who have the persuasive capacity, how can the revolution ever work if the commentary class is not satisfied with the quality of this current revolution and are preoccupied with cancel culture. Yeah. My fear is that my fear is that we have in fact become props in this capitalistic system. It's very easy to become a prop. When I say us, the us that I'm talking about the people who do what I do. I'm talking about my contemporaries. I'm talking about those people who shout into microphones all day long about how horrible this system is. And in fact, when a moment came for us to see I look and listen, there's a lot of stuff you can say about me that I don't do right. But boy, when I smelled revolution, it was like a shark smelling blood in water. I was ready to go. Because this system has proven that it will abandon us and leave us out here to not only leave us out here to die, but make decisions that will intentionally get us killed. So it's not that I dream of revolution at all. But when I realized that this system will literally send us to our death without a second thought. In fact, not only do they have no reservation about doing it, they seem to do it with a sense of joy. The ruling elite, the politicians, the managerial class, they seem to they have no qualm whatsoever about pushing us back out into this pandemic so that they can hit their quarterly profit margins. And once that hit my brain, you guys were listening to the show. You saw there was a shift in everything that I do. There was a shift because when you're presented with new information, or when you're presented with the realization that was there all the time, like that truth was there all the time, but it didn't resonate in me until COVID-19. And then they started opening back up, and now they're trying to send our kids back to school. Like, all of these elements say that we have every reason necessary to to give this regime literal hell. But I'm afraid that my contemporaries, so many of them, for whatever reason, I can't give all the justifications. I don't know all I don't understand, but I feel like we are failing you, those of you who are listening to us. I feel like we're failing you because you listen to us to inform you, to motivate you, but also to galvanize you, right? To rally people. And if we are not seizing upon the moment right now to rally people to the cause of saving human lives, I guess the thing is that there's such a disconnect that has grown between the people and the voice of the people, the voices of the people. Which brings me back to what I said at the beginning of the segment. I am afraid that this entire podcasting email list, all these YouTube channels, all of this that we do has become a prop in capitalism for varying reasons. We're now just entertainment. The problem is that I don't do this shit for entertainment. If I wanted to do entertainment, I would have a very unsuccessful career trying to be a gospel musician because I'm not really that good at the piano. I'm not really, I like to play keyboard, but I'm not good. I write pretty good songs, but, I don't really produce really good gospel music. I produce hip hop better than I do gospel music, but I digress. If I wanted to do entertainment, I would do that. If this was about entertainment, I would have stayed. There's so many positions, so many jobs that I have had in the past that paid me just as much, if not more, than what I'm making now doing this podcast, and I could have just done those jobs and just partied. Because I love to party. I mean, what's a revolution without a party? If this was just about entertainment to me. And now this, and I want to be sure, this is not about glorifying me. This is just to say, like, Benjamin Dixon, when I sit down and think about what's going on, I get depressed when I feel like everything that we are doing is just becoming a effing prop in the very system that I know is trying to kill us. That's not hyperbole. Teachers are still, across this country, teachers are still trying to figure out how they are going to go to work and not get sick with COVID-19. Around this country, people are still trying to figure out how they're going to manage when unemployment runs out, how they're going to manage when they have a chronic illness but they lost their health care. How are they going to manage when we have sent trillions of dollars to Wall Street but only gave Americans $1,200 months ago? So when I say the system is trying to kill us, there is no hyperbole there. And I'm not saying these things to glorify me. I just need you to understand why I am so, I guess the thing is I tried my best to avoid the cancel culture conversation because I knew it would bring out a side of me that I don't necessarily like. I don't like the moral superiority side of my voice, especially not when it's directed to contemporaries and when it's directed to individuals. I definitely don't mind my moral superiority to systems, to capitalism, to American imperialism. Hell, I don't mind my moral superiority. You know, that it's just the thing. It's part of my, you know it. You listen to me, like, you know, Ben is on his high horse. I hate that shit. I didn't want to engage in it. I would rather use it. If I gotta use it, I would rather point it towards like people who are actively trying to harm us. So I try to avoid that conversation because it's hard for me to discuss it without having this air of superiority. But I'm just at a loss. I don't know what to do in this moment. There will never be a time when America is more prepared to overthrow this regime. And we have constitutionally justifiable reasons to get the sociopaths that are in Washington, D.C. in both political parties out of here. But there's no way on earth that we could possibly do it if the revolutionaries are scattered and arguing over petty things like cancel culture. And there's the tone. There's the tone, that the lecturer's tone that I don't like to give towards other people, because I know my shit stinks too. I know I know my shortcomings. I know the limitations of my thoughts and my arguments. I know the logical conclusion and where I there's a limitation to what I'm going to do. I know I'm not about that bloody revolution life. I'm not. I want to go in the backyard and cook some damn barbecue and watch my kids jump on the trampoline. So I don't like giving this air of superiority when it comes to revolutionary talk, because I know my limitations. But I also know that if there was ever a time for a justified, legitimate removal of a regime, overthrow of a regime, look at what the ruling elite is doing to us right now. But the thinkers, the commentariat, the people you've signed up for you're a patron of them. You're on their emailing list. We're distracted. Here's the problem. We're distracted. Let me finish that last sentence. We're distracted. Here's the problem. Our enemies are not distracted. The people who are pushing us out into the streets, they're in the middle of a plague. They're speaking with a unified voice. They have the same talking points. They are focused on two things: providing as much money as they possibly can for the rulers of this world, for the rulers of this country, and making sure that the people don't get shit. Or better yet, more precisely, as my friend Ken Klippenstein said on Twitter, he's saying they're trying to figure out what's the absolute minimum they can do without the people rebelling. And that's the Democrats, to be quite honest with you. The Republicans are like, we don't give a damn. We have enough police to crush any rebellion. So send the students back to school, send the teachers back out into the plague, send workers back out into the pandemic, and let them make us our money. And if you got anything to say about it, then we'll crush you. That is the nature of our opposition. They are unified. And we're preoccupied with all these other things. Maybe not. And again, when I say we, I want to be clear. Not you, the listener or the supporter, but those of us with the platforms. You deserve better. You, the listener, deserve better. One last thing before we take this break, I just want to make sure that I clarify and double down on the fact that our opposition is unified. Our opposition is so unified and so totalitarian in their approach towards the discourse, approach towards the Overton window, the acceptable range of conversation in this country. They are so unified that you have someone like Tom Cotton, Senator Tom Cotton, out on television talking about how slavery was a necessary evil. He was, at the time, he was saying that as the Founding Fathers viewed or as the Founding Fathers said, slavery was a necessary evil. That's just a headline from yesterday, but it speaks volumes to me in terms of how solidified and how utterly unified the right is in this country. Let me also give you another juxtaposition to make it a little more clearly. The right is so unified in their messaging that when you say the word Antifa, most everybody in this country, unless you're a part of or affiliated with Antifa, gets a little sense of uneasiness about them because they're not sure. They think they might be dangerous. When news I just saw a juxtaposition of two headlines showing that in the past 25 years, Antifa has not been associated with a single murder, while right-wing conservatives have been responsible for every single extremist-related murder in the year of 2018. Not to mention what's going on right now, the shooting over the weekend. It's so unified and so solidified. The messaging and the beliefs on the right that it has become this unbreakable seal, this hermetically sealed bubble. I usually refer to that in the sense of everything that's going on the inside cannot escape to the outside. But perhaps more importantly, it is such a sealed bubble that nothing can penetrate it from the outside. No fact, no truth, no new information, because they have a formula that works. And that formula is take everything and give us nothing. Take all of the consideration that we give them, all the nuance that we struggle to give, all the navel gazing of introspection of ourselves. Take all that and weaponize that, but give nothing in return. Don't offer us nuance. They will never offer us nuance. They will never offer us a good faith argument. They will never offer us any sincerity. They will never grant to us the consideration that they have just as many problematic people on their side, when in fact they have they have people killing us on their side. But to them, there's nothing possibly wrong with them, and everything to be feared is over here with us. The terrorists are over here with us in their mind. The groups that need the police state brought down on them are over here with us, not on their side when their side is killing people, literally. That is how unified the right is. I know that there might be divisions amongst them, but when it comes to the national discourse and when it comes to opposing progress and opposing liberation, they close down ranks and act as if they are a single unit in opposition to us. And they will never grant us the consideration. They will never grant us the context of our conversation. They will never grant us nuance. They will never grant us mercy or forgiveness. And yet, here we are on our side of the aisle, worried about cancel culture, when they are over there with a totalitarian regime ready to dominate us with the police state. I swear to God, we got to get our shit together.
Go to www.patreon.com/The BPD Show and get twice the content and unfiltered interviews without any of the commercial interruptions.
And here we go. At this point in every single episode, I'd like to take a minute to thank the people who make the show possible, our patrons. Very special welcome to Mary Chance. Thank you for becoming a patron. Anita Shin, thank you for becoming a patron. Robert Zelinsky, thank you for becoming a patron. Andrea Elizabeth Morgan, thank you for becoming a patron. G Wiz, thank you for becoming a patron. Everybody just bop, yo. Nathaniel Burrell, thank you for becoming a patron. Henry B, MG, Daryl Ehrman, and Martin Callan, thank you all for becoming patrons. You too can become a part of this prestigious and prodigious patron family by going to patreon.com/The BPD Show, where you get twice the content, uncut, unfiltered interviews, and you give me the ability to speak power into the powerless, whether the powerful like it or not. You heard me?
Welcome back to The Benjamin Dixon Show. Visit us online at thebenjamindixonshow.com.
Okay. Welcome back. There's a lot of stories. Again, I'm sorry. Like my show flips back and forth. Sometimes I give you just a bunch of news headlines and commentary in the public show, and then in the patron show, I'll give all my intense rants. But right now, my intense rants are in the public show, and the news and commentary is in the patrons episode. And sometimes I just go even deeper. But I want to give you one last thought about this. I just set all that up to say that I'm not done talking about this shit yet. There's nothing. Like I started off this episode, I want to make sure that you're clear about something that I believe. No, let me start with what I desire. My greatest desire is for us to have a civilization where we could constantly engage in good faith arguments along with showing grace, consideration, forgiveness, just extending mercy to all people. That's what I would love. But we are in a fight with a framework in this country that engages in so much asymmetry that if you pause to give them some consideration and try to extend grace to them, they will literally weaponize it against you to harm you, to strip away rights, to violate your rights. This is not hyperbole. This is not an exaggeration. We are not engaging with people who want the same thing that we want. They want to leverage our willingness and our consideration against us. And we have no requirement to be kind to people who want to harm us. Patrons, stay tuned.
The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.patreon.com/The BPD Show and support The Benjamin Dixon Show. If you like this episode, be sure to share, like, and subscribe.